folks, welcome ye all to yet another podcast of mine. Another gaming week has passed us by, people. Yes, it has. And we have all sorts of gamey things to talk about, people, once again. What I've done this week is I've picked up a few news stories, so we'll go through those first, and then we'll crack into the main part, which was the state of play from PlayStation yesterday, which has some good stuff in it, to be fair. I was quite impressed with the tail end of it. And it wasn't the Uber event that people might have wanted, with the fact that they hadn't taken part in E3 and all that sort of stuff, but it's just another update on stuff they're trying to push at the moment. And we will get to that after we've gone through the little pieces of news stories that I've picked up that were of interest of me this week. I mean, I know more's happened than I talk about, but I pick up the things that are interest of me. As always, people, as always, now that I know how to do it, I will have put all the timecode stamps down below in the description, people. So if you want to just skip to a particular point of the podcast and not listen to me ramble on about all the little bits you didn't have any interest in whatsoever. I mean, I'm sure you do. I'm sure you'd love to hear me rattle on for the next half an hour or so, or 40 minutes, or sometimes over an hour, people. It depends how much we've got. But if you just want to get to the nitty-gritty of what you were interested in from the thumbnail or from the description, then you can go straight to that in the description below. So shall we, without further ado, people, crack in to the little news pieces that I picked up on this week? So, first out the gate, people, is Xbox games now have a new box, apparently, people, from all the artwork that we're now seeing online. And I realise there is an element of this where people don't notice anymore, because we have gone into a virtual world, people, now. Now, I am very much still a physical game purchaser. Sorry, I've got something in my eye, which is why I keep doing this. It's always when you start recording, people. Yeah, I mean, I'm very much still a physical media person, with the odd exception of if I go on to the store and I find something at a ridiculously cheap price, like I did with Dead Island Definitive Edition, or Remastered, or whatever it was called recently, and it was £4 odds. I just bought it. I thought, yeah, hell with it. I'll stick that in my library, and boom, there it is, and I can just play it. But I do like buying the physical copies. I like having my collections. In fact, as of next week, hopefully, fingers crossed, all things coming, I'm going to have some new things behind me. The two posters will be changing, and I've bought some they're kind of tall shelves. There's 4 of them, and they're all going to go behind me here as well, with my collection of PS3 and Xbox 360 games in them. All of my PS4, Xbox One, all that sort of stuff's downstairs, because I don't want it all the way up here if I want to grab games and play them. So I'm going to have my older collection behind me, with a couple of nice bits and pieces that I picked up as well. And we're going to get a bit more interest behind me where we can. I realise I'm blocking most of it, but, you know, I do spin a Rooney in my chair and stuff. It just make it a bit more interesting behind me in the chair. I won't tell you what the posters are or what the little knickknacks are that I bought, but that'll all change next week. But I love having my collection of games, which will all, you know, the older ones will be out behind me as of next week, hopefully in the next podcast. And, you know, so for me, collecting physical game also is a bit of a deal for me, because I like having it on a disc, so far as, you know, if things go wobbly online, or something's broken, or, you know, you just throw the disc in and you're off, aren't you? I'm still a little bit wary of what Microsoft are doing with their discs, because there's no clear-cut, here's one disc if you want to buy it for the Series X, here's another disc if you want to buy it for the Xbox One. There's no definitive thing going on. It's one disc to rule them all, and in the darkness not tell you what's going on. So I'm still not overly convinced. We've talked about it in previous podcasts, so I won't go on about it, but I'm still not convinced if I'm getting the full Boona game on the disc, or whether I'm just getting the basic Xbox One version on the disc, and then it downloads it 50 gig when I put the disc in. So I don't know. No one will tell me, people. But anyway, if we look at, hopefully while I'm talking, I'll have put up the new games boxes from Xbox behind me, if I can find a big enough image. But there's subtle changes. So, I mean, I'm going to look at it on my phone again so that I'm talking about the same thing that you're seeing with a bit of luck. So, yeah, the one on the left is the the current or old Xbox One casing, and it's got the embossed Xbox logo at the top of the case, and then underneath it would have had a black banner saying whether it was, Xbox Series S and X or Xbox One or whatever. So on the right, you can see that they have, there's a few things going on. One is that the big embossed Xbox thing is gone, so we're back to a plain case, which is the same as the 360 was. I prefer the tab at the top left because it's clearer. It's got the Xbox logo there, and then it says specifically in Xbox One, Xbox Series, whatever. Can't actually read it. But yeah, I think it's clearer. I'm trying to decide whether, I think I do prefer, if you look at the side, so if you put the case side on, it's a grey spine, we'll call it, will we? That's what it is when it's a book. So on the spine of the box, you've got a grey, just a plain grey, instead of it being anything to do with the actual artwork. And I expect that will be the same for every Xbox game. It will be that grey with the white. Well, yeah, it is. Well, it's kind of, the Halo Infinite is styled in the Halo Infinite font, but the Xbox logo obviously will all be the same at the top. But that's interesting because I think I brought some boxes up so we can check it out here. Because if you look at the side of you can't see the side of it on the picture, but if you look at the side of an Xbox One case, that way, it's the artwork carries over to the side and it goes all the way to the back. Now, I always felt a little bit disappointed with these boxes. Firstly, they were quite flimsy in comparison to the 360 boxes, and I wasn't a massive fan of the fact that there wasn't a tab at the top here. It was just Xbox One written on top of the artwork. Because what happens is, I just think the collection looks better when you've got the nice big tab. So there's a 360 one, and you've got the tab at the top left there. Well, I've probably got it upside down. There you go. So I preferred, I always loved the PlayStation, the Xbox 360 cases. And I think that is very similar to what they're trying to do now, apart from the fact that they've taken away, because that also went with the art. The artwork just carries on around the whole thing. But in the world of these pictures I've just shown you, that spine there is plain grey and just has the particular font for the game there, and then the Xbox symbol there. So I prefer it, but because I was never a big fan of this, because if you're putting your collection out, it's going to be in racks that look like that. And it's the same with PlayStation. If you look at the PlayStation ones, they've all got a PS3, PS4, PS5 tab here. And it just makes it look nice and uniformed and a nice, good collection. Unless you've got a steelbook or something, of course. But so, it's not a big deal. But it's only a big deal if you're going to put if you're a physical collector, of course, and if you're going to put your stuff out on a show, if you're proud of it, or you're like me, going to have stuff behind you here for stuff like this. A lot of people like having their collections out. I've seen so many people with massive walls of game collections and stuff. So anyway, interesting. I'm surprised they're doing it now as opposed to when they launched. You think that was the sort of decision they would have made at launch? But hey, it's an ever-evolving ecosystem, I suppose, and I'm more than happy for them to change it, because I was never a big fan of the Xbox One cases anyway. So yeah, nice to see. I think it's clearer. I think from a graphic design point of view, much simpler and easier on the eye. 7-ups to you all. It was just a little bit early again for a flagon, people. I will have my flagon once again while I'm editing all this together. And once again, I'm not getting sponsored by 7-Up. Just so I can say 7-Ups instead of flagon up. Right. Next on the agenda, people. Let me know in the comments below, by the way, what you think of the new cases. Or if you're not bothered, you're a digital purchaser, anything at all, let me know. Dark Souls 3, here's one that raised its weary head yesterday. Just stumbled across it randomly. I had no idea this had happened. Dark Souls 3, way back when the PS4 Pro came out, got a patch on PlayStation so that it could run at 60 FPS and I think at 1080p. Yeah, 1080p 60 FPS, that's what it was. And it was a bit hit and miss on the Pro, But obviously that patch came into it, so because it's effectively uncapped. So that patch came into its own when, and we'll see it. You'll see it on my channel if you go. I've got a Let's Play sitting there that I'm still wanting to get back to, of Dark Souls 3 on the PlayStation 5, and it is sublime to play. Super smooth 60 FPS at 1080p. So yeah, just randomly I stumbled across yesterday that Dark Souls 3 had a not, it doesn't say that it's an FPS boost, it says that it's actually a game patch for the game, which has come from the developer to allow the game to play at 60 FPS. So that was really, really cool to see. It doesn't say anywhere that they've upped it to 1080p, however, which would have been nice, because I think, if I'm not mistaken, on the Xbox it played at 900p. I want to say 900p. I think it is 900p. So it would have been nice to get a little tweak that upped it to 1080p, because the Xbox Series X and even the S are going to be well capable of doing that. So, you know, anyway, maybe they have, and it's just that people haven't noticed it. But yeah, so it was super nice to see. So if you're an Xbox player and you've got your Series X and your Series S, get your Dark Souls 3 back in and play that bad boy all over again, because you know it's not painful to play those games at all. The fun is in the pain, people. The fun is in the pain. Yeah, slap it back in and enjoy it at its 60 FPS glory, because I can't sing praises enough about 60 FPS. The minute I see a 30 FPS game now, my eyes start bleeding, people. Next up on the agenda, Switch. Nintendo have announced a new Switch, people. Yes, they have. And it is basically just disappointing most people. Because everybody wanted a Switch Pro, something that was going to go 4K, something that might have a better base unit, something that, you know. In the end, what they've done is they're releasing a Switch OLED, Switch OLED. So it's got an OLED screen on it, as opposed to whatever was there before, LCD or whatever it was they had on it. And it's slightly bigger. It's a slightly bigger screen. There was a few things that I noted down. There's probably more than this, but it's got a larger screen, an OLED as well, and it's a different dock, which has got a couple of extra things on it. It's certainly the only thing I picked up on of note was that you can physically wire in an Ethernet. You can hardwire your Ethernet in. I think the dock that existed on the Switch might only have been, well, I assume I've got mine Wi-Fi'd. I think it might be Wi-Fi only on the existing one. Because the very fact that they're mentioning it must mean that it's a new thing, I would think. And it's got a large, not the base unit, but on the back of the Switch, that's the Switch OLED just come up behind me. On the back of the Switch OLED, you've got a little stand that you can pull out, and it's very thin and not particularly sturdy. On this one, it's wide. I think it's centered as well on the back, and it's wide. You pull it out, and it's much, much more sturdy. So it just all round is kind of a nicer, slicker version of the Switch, but it doesn't come with any extra oomph or power. It just comes with a nicer display. I'm still got my concerns about OLED, because they are very prone to screen to burning, to burn, screen burn. Is that right? Why did that not sound right when I wanted to say it? Anyway, yeah, screen burning. I mean, if you get burn on a TV screen, it's there kind of for life at that point. And I mean, if you don't know what that is, it's basically if you've got, let's say you've got a game and everything's moving around in the middle, which is fine, because the TV's happy when everything's changing color and shadows and everything's changing. It's when things are static. So let's say, for example, you've got a health bar that sits at the bottom of your screen for the entire time of that game, and it rarely changes. Parts of it that never change, eventually, because it's the same color constantly, if you're there for, you know, I mean, it does take a long time for this to happen, but in some cases, but some OLEDs can suffer from it quite quickly, especially with things like, I mean, I noticed there was a company on YouTube that was testing televisions with it, and they had TVs running, you know, 24 hours with things like Sky Sport News, right, where they've got the scrolling thing at the bottom of the screen that's always the same, just sort of scrolls, and eventually that burned into the OLED screen. I think QLED, which is the Samsung one, it doesn't have that issue. It's less prone to it. But OLED, just as a technology, is quite prone to it. So I don't know if they're ever going to find a way around it. But anyway, that's my only concern with the screen, is that you know, a lot of games have these static health bars or static radial maps or whatever in the corners, that you follow around. And much as though some of it moving around, like the outer circle of that won't move, or the health bar won't, the outers of it won't move. So, I think there are some phones that have got OLED screens, isn't there? And I think there are some phones because if you look at an iPhone, I mean, the home screen is a bunch of logos that rarely move unless you scroll through them. So I have seen it where phones have suffered a similar issue. But what happens is if you're watching something else, and you won't see it if things are bright, but if things dim down, you suddenly see sort of little shapes on your screen while you're watching something else. So it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see the lifespan of that screen for screen burn like that, or image burn, or whatever it is we're going to call it. I don't know why that's confusing me. That is it, image burn or screen burn? You know what I mean, people. Right, where were we next on the agenda? Anyway, it was nice to see them release something new, because the Switch has been around. They did the Switch Lite, of course, but it was nice to see them do a slightly more upmarket model. Kind of keeps the real Nintendo lovers are gonna, probably go straight for that. Aaron Brew, who loves Switch, it's his sort of go-to console outside of outside of the PS5. He's not going to go for it because he's like, well, there's a high likelihood there's going to be a Switch Pro next year, so there's no point in me spending that money on that one. I might as well just wait for the Pro and get the 4K, or get the, I can't see it being 60 FPS, but if it was me, I'd be making it 60 FPS and keeping it at 1080p, but Anywho, where are we, people? Next up on the agenda. Yeah, there was just random, but there was some Sony advert that had to be taken down because some Muppet had put a picture up of a PlayStation 5 sitting on a shelf, and they put it upside down, so the DVD drive, because it was one with the DVD drive, Blu-ray drive, was at the top rather than at the bottom. It's like who is hiring these people? Like, it was only a week ago that they posted up that they'd bought over a company and then put the wrong images up. It was a different company. They put Bluepoint's images up when they were talking about buying Housemarque. So that was why people knew that they must be close to buying bloody Bluepoint. I mean, come on now. If you're going to have people in charge of your marketing and stuff, at least have them savvy to your product. know who makes your games. Know how your console stands up. Oh dear. Actually, funnily enough, it looks even fucking uglier when it's the wrong way around. And that's not me having a go at PlayStation. I love my PS5 and I love my Xbox Series X, but they're both fucking... Oh, I don't know where the design... I mean, I understand from some point of view where the design for the Xbox Series X came from, because it was to do with airflow. So they tried to build a little mini tower. But then the way they've done it means that you've got to have that stupid base unit on it all the time. So when you sit on your side like I do, it looks really weird from that side because it's got this circular base on it all the time. So I really hope they come up with an Xbox Series X that doesn't look anything like that. But the idea with the Series X is that the air comes in from the bottom and it goes straight out, through and out the top. And that's how it keeps itself nice and cool. It's a great idea, but that means that they want that base unit. Yeah, you can't take it off, because if they allowed you to take it off, all they would get then is people having overheating systems because they've forgotten to put it back on and stood it on its, vertically. So it's just covering their own arses, but it just doesn't look very nice. So, I mean, I just don't like the look of either of them particularly, but they're superb machines. I just don't like the look of them. So hopefully I will probably be one of these suckers at some point that goes for slimmed down versions of these, in 4 or 5 years time, if that comes around. Or even, I'm not convinced there'll be like a midway with these ones like there was in the last ones. I think if anything, you'll just get a 2 terabyte model instead of a 1 terabyte model, and it'll be a slimmed down version, stuff like that, like we got with the previous gen before last gen. I don't think we'll see another one, another generation, because they went so far above where I expected them to go anyway. I think they've kind of really really gone to as top end as hardware as they could go at the price ranges they wanted to do. They're giving us more than we deserve, really, for that price. So I just don't see where the benefit for them comes from, because it's not, they really did it last time because they wanted to punt 4K and get 4K going. We've already got that, and still a lot of people don't have 4K, so I don't see a mid-generation upgrade. I can see mid-generation slimmed down versions, but not upgrades, and that's fine with me. And if they do slim down versions, I may well be tempted to do that if they look nice, just to make my living room look a bit nicer, but you know. It's only me that's here half the time, but you know what I mean, people, eh? You gotta love your shiny shiz, people. Right, where are we next? Assassin's Creed Infinity has been announced, and although they haven't actually said what it is exactly, it is rumoured to be something that is going to be an online multiplayer live service game. So, you know, it's going to be taking on all the Battle Royale type Fortnites of the world and all that sort of stuff. So to be honest, I think every company like that is probably going to try and do a few of those. And I think Assassin's Creed's got room for it. It's not my thing. I don't play that stuff. I don't do PvP. I don't do the online stuff like that. But I think it has, if they make a good one, I think it could be really, really popular without any shadow of a doubt. You know, assassins over rooftops and, you know, hunting each other down and stuff. I think it could be very, very cool. Wait to hear more on that front. And yeah, just finally today, just a random piece of information. You apparently, now this is a little bit of a spoiler, all right? So if you haven't played The Last of Us Part 2 and you're planning to, then switch this bit off and jump to where the next timestamp is. Because the next timestamp will actually be the PlayStation State of Play. So jump to that. So you've been warned. I'm going to say it now. The bit in The Last of Us Part 2 where you're chasing Tommy, and I completely missed the point that this was Tommy we were chasing when I played the game. For some reason I never twigged that that's what it was, but anyway, you're playing as Abby and you're chasing Tommy, and in the game when you play it normally, you just keep, you know, you just got to avoid his sniper shots effectively, and then eventually you get to a point where it all sort of ends. However, if you sprint fast enough, you can actually catch him and kill him. And I assume this is a glitch because that would completely ruin the story of the game. Because, well, it wouldn't ruin it so much as it would end with Ellie living nicely on a farm with her girlfriend and the baby. because Tommy wouldn't come and noise her up about going back and finishing the job off. So, you know, but it's got to be a glitch. I mean, I don't know what happens. I mean, I assume that maybe the game just carries on and Tommy still pitches up anyway, even though you killed him there. But I don't know what happens if you've killed him in the game. I mean, I'm not overly sure you're meant to be in that room where they showed the video clip. But anyway, I watched, there was a video clip, I think it was on Twitter, so I'm not sure I'll be able to show it to you. But you can go and look for it yourselves. But anyway, I thought it was quite funny. But it's a weird one, though. Like, how has somebody just noticed that now? These are the sort of things that people pick up in the first couple of days. You know, the people that do speed runs and all that sort of stuff always trying their luck to, you know, to find some way of making a game look stupid. So, anyway, moving swiftly on to the State of Play from July... what was it yesterday? The 8th? What day are we on? I'll have put it in the tab as well by now. Yeah, it was July the 8th. It was yesterday. And I don't think anyone was expecting a massive, you know, big E3 type presentation or anything like that. It was literally just a state of play. With these things now, I'm not even sure if we're going to get, you know, massive state of plays anymore. I think they're always going to be sort of bite-sized chunk things so they can push what they want to push for that particular moment in time, rather than just bombard people with a whole bunch of stuff where people just remember the really cool stuff and forget all the rest. So first up on the State of Play was Moss Book 2, which is a VR game. I must admit I've never seen Moss Book 1, but anyway, it was a very cute looking game. The first lump of stuff that we're talking about it seemed to be coming from indie type developers. That was the sort of level of game you felt like you were looking at. Not that I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but you know what I mean. Like there's a level up when you go to the AAA games and all that sort of stuff. So they did feel very indie like. And yeah, I mean, it looked like a really cute game. You're playing as this little mouse character. You've got the sword and shield type stuff, and you're running around, and uh, it looks RPG-ish. You're in that sort of, swords and knights and all that sort of world. But it looked really, really cute. The artwork looked really, really nice. The action looked really, really fun. It's a VR game though, and it's interesting that they're punting a VR game at the minute because, I mean, the VR's still going, but we know already that the VR 2 is coming. So that their second VR, I mean, all sorts of good is coming out of that because at the moment, the thing that put me off buying the VR headset was because there was like cables everywhere. With the VR2, they've already stated that it's only going to be one cable, and there's a whole bunch of extra features coming with it that are going to be based around all of these new, sound things they're doing with the, making everything 3D effectively. And I mean, it's going to be something to behold, this VR2, I think. And the lighter they can make it as well, but, we'll see how we go. But it looks very much, I mean, I think they have said it's not going to be this year, so, we'll be looking at a 2022 thing. They're still very early in developing things for it, I think. But I think I always kind of forget about VR, and it's something that I did try it once. It was an Oculus Rift, and I tried it at an event here in Blackpool. And there was a team turned up just showing off what it could do. This was a number of years back now, and you had to queue up, and you got there, and I think it was some sort of mining type game thing. You didn't actually play anything; you were just sort of on this thing looking around, and it was fascinating to actually try it out. I mean, it was amazing. I mean, you literally, like, when you put it on, you're just so immersed. It's like the whole world around you just vanishes, because you put the headphones on and you're getting the noise of it, and then with everything else you're doing with the, everything you're seeing is from there. I think the only thing I took away from it was you've still got this, like, until you can get rid of this sort of binocular effect where you can see the black line down the middle here, then it's always going to feel a little bit weird to me. Like, it needs to be an image that is all encompassing around the eyes rather than something that's divided down the middle. Now, I don't know if they're all like that, but that's certainly the one that I tried was. But anyway, very cute looking game. It's nice to see that they're still pushing VR. I'm not sure. I mean, I'm only surprised they're pushing it. I mean, I suppose they're going to push a few games just to say, hey, VR's still there, VR's still there, But, because if they're going to launch a new VR system next year, then without any shadow of a doubt, they're going to want a whole bunch of stuff to go with it. So you would think they'll hold back as many of the great games as they can for it. That said, it's whether or not the games being made now for VR, we assume they'll just work on the new one. Moving swiftly on, the next game up was Arcadeageddon, which was a new IP, and it's got early access, and it is available now. So it went live yesterday. I think the full game is out in 2022, so this is their chance to... I love the early access stuff. It's really, really cool. So it's a new IP. It is a co-op 4-player... I don't know what I've written there before that, but anyway, it's 4-player co-op. I mean... It seems to be based around the fact that every level is kind of a beloved arcade with all of these cool arcade games and stuff in it, and you've got to save it. It's just a battleground thing is effectively what it is. So it's sort of it's got so you earn credits for doing challenges. There's loads of loot to collect. You can battle your friends in PvP. I think, it's co-op and PvP, so you can play it. Oh yeah, you can play it. That's what I was trying to write at the beginning. You can play it solo or 4-player co-op, and there's battle royales in it, PvP, all that sort of stuff. And it's just one of those crazy things you run around. It's got melee weapons, it's got guns and all that sort of stuff. Again, not my thing, but it looked really cool. It looked like a lot of work had gone into it, so you can check that out. Arcadeageddon, I think I'm saying that right. I nearly said Tributes of Midgard there. Tribes of Midgard. We've talked about this before in a previous podcast, and the more I see of this game, the more I think it's quite cool. Actually, I think there's going to be I think it might be a little bit of a hit. This one, even though my initial look at it, I thought, I'm not sure if this is going to be a hit or a miss. I think the more I see of it, I feel like it's going to be a bit of a hit. Yeah, I gave you the date for the last one. So yeah, so Tribes of Midgard it's an action Viking RPG thing, and it's based on seasons. So it's coming out on the July 27th. So it's really close. So it's coming out with its first season. It's got 8 classes of different characters. It's got player co-op. It's got saga quests. Each season. Right, okay, yeah. So you get a saga quest each season, which is like a raid, effectively, and that's the biggest thing that comes with each season. So we assume that that's like a raid if we're going to compare it to something like Destiny. You've also got a fortifying village thing in there, so there's something going on to do with, making sure your village is fortified because it will get attacked by monsters and all that sort of stuff. So I'll be interested to see how that all plays, because if you're out in the world fighting, I assume you might get notifications saying your village is being attacked, or I don't know, stuff like that. But it's quite cool that they've got that element in it where you've got to do construction and all that. Kind of gives it a different twist and spin than something else that's just another online multiplayer. What else was there? Yeah, so they were saying that this is really just the beginning, and you're going to get a new season every blah amount of months, and it's just going to keep on growing and growing and getting bigger and bigger. That's their idea with it. So it's just going to be a live service by the looks of it. But it does look really cool, though, if you're into the RPG stuff and you like doing your online stuff. And as I say, it's out in July 27th. Fist Forged in Shadow Torch. Oh, right, yeah, Fist, which stands for Forged in Shadow Torch. Yeah, it looks really pretty, this game, actually, and it's a side-scroller action game playing as you seemed to be playing as some sort of hare character or rabbit and a cat sort of character, but it looked quite dark and the action looked really cool. It's side-scrolling, though, and I don't tend to touch a lot of the side-scrolling stuff. But it does look really cool and really slick. So it'd be interesting to see if it does well. I was quite impressed with the little trailer they threw up. It looked like it had a lot of style, good music. Didn't really say an awful lot about what the story or anything was, I don't think. I'm remembering a lot of this off the top of my head. I did watch the State of Play, or bits of the State of Play again. So I've watched it twice now, just to sort of refresh my mind. But yeah, it looks really cool, though. Again, I mean, as you know, as I talk these things through, if I'm able to, I'll have been showing you all this in the background. Anyway, that is out on September 7th. September is becoming a very popular month at the moment. You'll notice as we go through these. So there you go. Fist is out September 7th. Next up was Hunter's Arena Legends, which is out in August, and it's free to PlayStation Plus players. And this is another online. Well, you can play it solo again, I think. So these are the notes I've taken down. So it's a fighting game it's a fighting game / battle royale game, effectively, and it looks to be set in an open world from from what we've been shown on the trailer. You're fighting demons and other players to survive. It's got dungeons scattered around the world, which will help you level up and fight demons to get extra loot and all that sort of stuff. It's got a solo mode for the Battle Royale, where you battle up to 30 players, battle it out in solo mode. And then in trio mode, you can pair up with another 2 people. So you can set yourself up with as a party of 3. And battle your way through the party of 3 battle royale, effectively. So that it'd be really interesting to see, because the thing that's always put me off battle royales is I'm not the greatest at fighting other people, but if there's a way that I can fight other people with other people, then that'd be quite cool. So it'll be interesting to see how that pans out. It does look really pretty, I have to say, and it's all that swords and knights and blah. But it did seem to have a funky side to it, though, where you could put stupid outfits on, and and then it started looking a bit modern rather than a bit old. But I think that's just up to you as to how you want to play it. So yeah, but it looks very good. Free on Plus, out in August. It's funny that we didn't get a date, though. Anyway, out next month. Sifu was next up. SIFU. FU. Is out. It's out early 2022. I have to say, I didn't know what to make of this game. It just seemed to show. Well, it was martial arts going on constantly, and then it kind of started with age 40. Then it went up to age 42. Then it went up to. But each time you got a bit of a fight scene, it went up. His age changed and kept getting older, up until about 52, I think. Which is quite nice, people. It's quite nice to see somebody around the 50 mark and doing some action. You know what I mean? We're still here, you know. We're still alive as 50-year-olds. You know what I mean? Yeah, I wasn't quite sure what to make of it. Is it just a level thing where you're just jumping into I mean, I didn't know if it was a fighting game or whether it was like a Yakuza type thing or whether it was a... But it looked... I mean, certainly the action looked fun enough and everything, but if you're into your martial arts fighting and all that sort of stuff, it's something to keep an eye on to see if you can get more information about it and see if it's something you're going to be interested in at some point. I mean, you've got a bit of time to think about it yet. Early 2022 as it happens. But it did look very cool though, I have to say. But I need to see a lot more of it to know if it's something that's going to be of interest. This age thing is what stuck with me. It's like, why? What has that got to do with it? You know, like Tina Turner said. What's age got to do with it, people? Hey! What was up next? Jet! The Far Shore. It's a new space game, space exploration game, this one. And initially when I started watching the footage, I was like, are we going into No Man's Sky territory here? I mean, it does have an element of it to it, but it's not No Man's Sky. It's really pretty. The flying looks super fun. It's all about, because the guy was saying that no matter what you're doing in the game, it's a lot. It's all to do with motion and what have you. But it's very much not a combat game. And to be some extent, nor is No Man's Sky, to be fair. But this one is very much like, if you get into trouble, you've got to find a way to evade the trouble with the tools you have rather than fighting them. You don't do fighting. You're a scientist. And you are meant to try and do observation of new planets and new creatures and wildlife and all that sort of stuff without disturbing them too much, and try and figure out what keeps things, animals ticking, or so it looks very interesting what they've done. They've been working on it for a lot of years, this game. The guy said in the trailer that they initially started working on the game with like 3 people, and now there's a whole team of them working on it. It's been well over 3 years, this game. I feel like he said the first 3 years of development was 3 people, so it must be longer than 3 years. But anyway, it stuck with me. It stuck in my brain as something to maybe watch out for at some point. It's not normally the sort of game I would go for, but there was something about it that just seemed to catch my eye. I mean, it does seem to be that you can get out of the ship and wander about, but most of what they showed us was flying around in the ship, and you're scanning from the ship and doing things from the ship. So I don't know how much actual walking about as a person you do. But anyway, interesting to see. And did we say when it was out? Didn't know. I don't have a date written down, so it maybe didn't give one. It may. I'm saying that it's probably going to show behind me now, isn't it? But Demon Slayer was next up. This was an anime game, and I love the anime style, but I tend not to play games of any sort of anime style. Not a lot, anyway. And it was it did throw me back to some 80s 90s anime cartoon type stuff that used to be on the telly. It even reminded me of things like what was it, D'Artagnan and the Musketeers and all that sort of stuff. That kind of cartoon style. But it was very, very cool looking, and if you're into that sort of anime type vibe, then that game's going to be right up your street. I have to say the action kind of reminded me a bit of Ni no Kuni. I've never played the second Ni no Kuni, to be fair. It didn't get anywhere near the praise that the first one got, but the first Ni no Kuni I thought was just a genius game, absolutely brilliant. But the action system in it was like, if you're fighting something, you can just run around and then wait for you to be able to do your next move and stuff, and just keep running around, and and it's that kind of action that seems to be in this one as well. And it just kind of reminded me of Ni no Kuni. It's the only game I've kind of played that had an action style like that. Although, I suppose to some extent, that's what Final Fantasy Remake is like, the 7 one. It's a little bit more like that, where you've got the freedom to move around until you do your next move and all that sort of stuff. So it did feel a little bit like that, but it looks really, really cool though. I'm not sure if I think it was a Sega game, that one. Next up was, well, now this does look good, and this has made me, I need to kick myself up the arse, people, and play Judgment. Now, Judgment is in the same universe as the Yakuza games, and I bought Judgment probably about, I don't know, I probably told you on here in a vlog somewhere. I think it must have been about a year ago. I found it on the cheap, so I bought it for the PlayStation. But I bought it for the PlayStation 4. So yeah, and I've had the PlayStation 5 since it came out. So yeah, I'm pretty sure I've had it for about a year or close to. But this trailer was for Lost Judgment, which is the follow-up game. And it's coming on September 24th. And looking at the trailer, it just gave me a huge want to just go and play Judgment. Because I suspect it will be it's obviously going to be a very similar animal. But I love with these sort of Japanese games is they make a game like that. It's not just a game. It's the same with Final Fantasy to some extent, and even Sleeping Dogs, what I was talking about last week, and stuff like that, because they put all these little side games in that are fun to do. Now, I've seen Ubisoft try and fill worlds with stuff that just isn't interesting. Like they did it with the first Watch Dogs. It's like there's a huge world, and some of it was cool, but the actual side game stuff I didn't find particularly interesting. And I think there was one side quest thing in it that got people a little bit hooked. But in general terms, you got to fill the world with stuff that's going to make people stay there. And these Japanese companies seem to be able to do that with the stupid stuff like. You just stumble into a dancing, somehow having a dance, and you've got to press all the buttons like a little dance game. What was the other one I noticed on there? Racing. There was a racing game in there where the racing game, so far as Sleeping Dogs went, was really, it was just you raced around the streets that were already there. I suspect it's the same in this one, but anyway, that aside, it's got the Yakuza. The thing it's got that the other Yakuza games doesn't have is this investigation type thing, because you're a sort of private detective, I think, in it, and you've got these investigative skills that you can use to try and find clues to crimes, and you've got to solve a murder and all that sort of stuff. So, and I think it got an 8 out of 10, 8 or a 9 out of 10 when it came out. So it got pretty well praised, the game, the first one. And so obviously spurred them on to make a second one. I am assuming this is a full-on second one and not just a DLC. It seemed to be suggesting it was a full-on second one. But as Aaron Brew, my son, keeps telling me, he keeps saying Judgment's good, but he just adores the Yakuza series, especially Yakuza 0. And interestingly enough, all of the Yakuza games are now on Xbox Games Pass. So not Judgment though, I think, just all the others. So there is the tempting thing of me going, well, why don't I just jump into those? But if I do that, I mean, they're massive, these games. I'll never get to Judgment. So I think in the end, I am going to do Judgment first. And if that sits well with me, then I might go in, because it doesn't spoil the story, because it's only in the same universe and stuff. It doesn't tap into the stories of the other Yakuza games. So anyway, worth checking out. If it's something you've never looked at before, everyone keeps can't give enough praise about the Yakuza games, including Judgment. So super excited for that coming along, and I need to start playing Judgment. I need to finish Dead Island Definitive, which is what I'm playing at the minute, and Gears Tactics as well. But I can kind of bounce in and out of that with another game. So it might well be next up on my list. I'll see how I go. Next up was Death Stranding Director's Cut, which we talked about a week or two ago, but we got a lot more details on it this time. So it's coming out on September 24th. September is getting popular, and so is September 24th. September 24th, it's got a very hard mode. It's got new weapons. It's got new battle mechanics. It's got it's PS5 enhanced. It's got new story missions. It's a new racing side game in it, new battles, upgraded melee. It's got a maser gun. It's a sort of a lightning gun, it looked like. A upgraded melee we've done. Yeah, upgraded melee. I mean, I haven't played Death Stranding yet, so I don't know what that I don't know what that means as upgraded melee. Was there not any melee before? Melee attacks, that is, I think. It's got mounted machine guns. It's got a firing range if you want to practice all the weapons and all that sort of stuff. It's got a delivery support. More delivery support has been added to it for the postman side of it. There's a cargo catapult that you can put your stuff in these pods and then just catapult it across the map out of this giant machine. It's got a support skeleton that you can put on your character that lets him carry more stuff. And you've got a buddy bot that can walk around with you, which carries more stuff. That's basically every companion from every Bethesda game ever. What's the reason you take a companion with her? Because they can carry stuff, people. And a jump ramp, which you can lay it down and then you can ride your motorbike jump over a chasm or whatever that you can't get past on foot. So, yeah, I mean, I have to say that trailer was the first time that Death Stranding actually got me a little bit excited. It was never anything that I was remotely interested in. From the minute I saw it, I thought, it doesn't look... I mean, the initial movie trailer looked interesting, but then when I saw it was basically felt like you were being a postman, walking, climbing, balancing. I was like, I'm not sure that's for me. But this trailer now, mate, with all the additions, looks like it might feel a bit more than that now. So it might be something that I'm very I won't get it at launch, but the director's cut might be something I will tap into later on down the line. I think this game is going to be... I mean, I know it was well received, but I don't think it got a massive audience. I don't think it got the sort of audience that like a Metal Gear would have done. I think people did look at it and go, that's very weird. Especially people that don't have the slightest inkling of who Kojima is or, what he's capable of. So I think this will be a slow burner, this game. I think for years to come, and especially now they've added all this stuff, I think for years to come, this game will start appearing on people's radars out the blue going, I should have played this years ago. So, yeah, it does look really, really good, though, I have to say, with all the extra stuff put in it. September 24th, people. Mark it in your diary. And then finally, we got Deathloop, which was the deep dive of the state of play. And I was just initially, I mean, I'll talk a bit more about the game in a sec, but again, I was just super disappointed that they're showing it off at 30 frames per second. It looked sticky and like, it seems to be... For whatever reason, every time they're showing a game off, and they did it with Horizon Zero Dawn as well, or Horizon Forbidden West, as it is, it just annoyed the hell out of me because it was at 30 frames per second, and it's like, I mean, you can stream at 60, obviously, so, I mean, you can't stream at 4K, so what is the point of putting in the 4K mode to stream it at 1080p? Why don't you just put it at the 60 FPS mode and stream it at 1080p? I don't understand why they're doing it like that. Because every time we ask the question, why are you showing it off in 30 frames per second? It's like, oh, don't worry, there'll be a 60 FPS mode or a boost mode, whatever we want to call it, performance mode. It's like, yeah, but why don't you like show that instead of the 30 frames per second one? Like, I mean, it's possible that sometimes, after the stream's finished, the version you can watch later, maybe that's 4K and that's why they're doing it. But I won't touch 4K with a barge pole. I'll touch 60 FPS every time. It's by far the better looking game every time. And when you see, I mean, I don't know how, now that I've played, everything I'm playing is, if I put something on now and go, I'm going to go back to play that, and it's 30 frames per second, I can't bear it anymore. My eyes are adjusted so much now to 60 FPS and how smooth it is. I cannot be doing with anything at 30 frames per second. It winds me up. Anyway, that aside, my problem with Arcane, well, it's not a problem. We'll call it an issue. My issue with Arcane has always been that everything that they do, no matter what world they put it in, always felt like it still felt like I was playing Dishonored, but with different weapons in a different place. It just like you just felt that's what it was, and that is clearly their engine. That's clearly what they're basing all their games on. And I tried to play Prey, and I got heavily into Prey, but it just the loading times going through a door were just winding me right up. I mean, games like Dead Space did the same sort of thing, and you opened a door like that. It took it seconds to go into another area, so that wound me up to go from area to area. It didn't have enough interest in its enemies. Like once you'd fought one of the big uns, and every now and then you'd get a super big un, but they just were all kind of these black blobs of different shapes and sizes. There was no real interest there after a certain point. But super good looking game. Dishonored itself, I have struggled. I got really close to the end of Dishonored 1. I've just never finished Dishonored 1 or 2. I've tried them both. Something just didn't hook me there. I'm trying to think what else. But anyway, this game, the first time I saw the footage for it, the gameplay, I thought, this just feels like it's the same again. Like, it just feels like another world, same thing. But I have to say that every time I see more of this game, I am going, actually, I quite fancy playing this. And I don't know, I mean, I've jotted down some stuff here. It's a great 70s vibe and great 70s action music, fun characters, great gunplay, great magics play. I don't know if it's magics play or whether it's gadgets play, but it looked like magic at some points. Multiple ways to kill target. Sorry, this is now stuff I just jotted down as they were talking about. There's multiple ways to kill your targets. You learn each time, because the point of the game is like each time you try and do something, you'll die. But before you die, you'll have learnt certain things as you went. So when you die, the day starts over. That's the loop. And then you do it again, but this time you've got extra knowledge and you know how to get past the problem, and that's how you work your way through the game. I don't know how annoying it's going to be to keep looping if you keep getting it wrong, or whether it is literally like, well, I've got that piece of information now, so I know I need to go there and I'll avoid that this time. Could be. So it's an interesting concept, and there's lots of little quirky things thrown in for good measure. You've got another assassin after you and all this sort of stuff as well. She jumps in from time to time. There was another thing they mentioned where, because obviously each time you die, you lose everything, but there was a way to save I think you build up points by, you kind of suck this energy out of some dead enemies, I think, and by collecting it, I don't know what it is, if it's energy or whatever, I wasn't quite sure, but that you take this from them, and that is what allows you to then keep certain things for the next loop round, and you can start building. It's like, well, I picked up 5 guns and I've got this amount of this stuff, so I'm going to pin that to that gun, and that's the gun I'm going to keep for the next loop. And you can start building your character around those decisions, which is quite cool. So, it looked like you can be stealthy and full on, and, all the ways that you do pretty much in Dishonored, to be fair. I don't know if there's an impact to the world when you do things. I don't think they've got any of that in it. But yeah, anyway, we've got a date of the September the 14th, people. September the 14th. And I have to say, it looks, it does. The more I see it, the more I'm very excited about that game. I must say, people, I must say. So there you are. That's all I have for you, people. Well, I hope that was of use to somebody out there that didn't want to sit through it and just watch it themselves. I mean, if you'd watched it without watching this, the nice woman talked over most of it for you. So there you are. So we shall see what happens in this next week of gaming, people. I haven't actually played a huge amount this week. I did a 3-hour session earlier on in the week of Dead Island again, because I'm still trying to push my way through it. I'm actually in, for anyone who's played it, and you might know where I am, it seems like it's never ending, that game, at the minute, but I've just got to I think I'm at the tail end of Act 2, so I've got the armoured truck and all that sort of stuff. I've finished off the main town, and the lifeguard guy has now asked me to go to the hotel, to the roof, and I think it feels like that's the only thing I've got left to do is that mission, and 3 missions, which are all in the jungle. And I had to look this up because I couldn't find the frickin' jungle. Apparently, you can't get to it until Act 3. So I need to push the story on to do those. So I've only got the story mission to do, which is get to the hotel rooftop, and then we'll see what happens after that. And then at some point, Act 3 kicks in, and then I'll presumably end up in a jungle somewhere. So yeah, but I'm thoroughly enjoying it. I'm just like, it's one of those though, I had no idea it was this big a game. Like, you know, I think the last time I tried to play it way back in the 360 it must have been, Xbox 360, or I might have tried it on the PS3 as well. But I think the furthest I ever got was when you just reached the town rather than the resort. You move from the resort, and then in Act 2 you go to the town. And I think that's where I kind of tailed off with it, and I didn't go back to it. So I had no idea how long it took to do that town. I mean, to be fair, I'm doing every side mission that I find, and, you know, I mean, you don't have to do that, but I wanted to level my character up as much as I could, so I've just been running around enjoying you know, doing as much as I can and getting as much XP as I can, and, you know. So yeah, so it'll be interesting. I assume Act 3 is the final act, but if it's the same length as the others, then I've still got a fair ways to go. If I'm going to do every mission. I'm level 29, so I've just started to go toward my level 30. And I'm hoping there's a little bit of G's there for me, people. You know, it'd be nice to get some gamer points for getting to level 30, wouldn't it? I think I've got level 25 gamer points though, so maybe not. Maybe there's one. I don't know. Is there a soft cap? There can't be a soft cap at 30 because I'm still leveling up pretty quick, unless Act 3 is quite short. But I'm not sure what the sort of soft cap is for the game, if there is one. Maybe level 40. But anyway, I'm pretty uber now. I've got some really good weapons as well, finally, which have all been upgraded and got mods on. I've got I think some of them have got the electric mod on them, so things start getting shocked when you hit them from time to time. It doesn't happen every time you do it, and then I've got the hot rod, I think it's called, mod on on my handheld ones. But basically, what I did was I went with the character that's sharp weapons, and because you get at the beginning of the game, you can go sort of melee, you can go guns, you can go sharp weapons, you can go something else, the fourth one, and I hadn't tried the sharp weapons. I always seem to go blunt, you know, massive blunt weapons. So I went the woman that's the sharp weapons. And it's really, really cool. And obviously with each of those, yeah, see, I played the whole game up to a point. I can't remember where it was. The first time I came across people with guns, because you're only fighting zombies for a really long time. And then it's not till you get to the town that you actually get the other people that are just being nasty buggers, and they start shooting at you. Of course, I've no gun, so what I've ended up with is I've got 2 handheld, well, they're all handheld, but 2 weapons that I use to melee people with, which have both got the burn on them, the hot rod, and then I've got the machetes effectively, and then I've got 3 at the top of my circle that are for throwing, that I can just throw at people, because they're kind of shorter, so I don't want to be meleeing people with them, but I've got them upgraded with the electric or whatever. And then on the right, I've now got a gun, because I kind of thought, well, I've gone blades, so I don't want to be picking up guns and stuff. But actually, it's not quite like that, the game. You get more perk when you use the person, you know, because your skill tree is based on the sharp weapon stuff. But doesn't mean a gun's shit. It just, you know, and in the end, I've always got my gun in that slot, because at some point, if you come across other people with guns, try to run up to them and smack them can get you in all sorts of dying positions. So there's absolutely areas of that game that just really you want to be having a gun with you. And to be honest, it made it more interesting having one anyway. Just mixed up the action a little bit. Anyway, thoroughly enjoying it. God, I went off on a bit of a tangent there, people. I was ready to say goodbye about 10 minutes ago. There you are, people. That is all I have for you. Let me know in the comments below about any of the things I've been talking about. From the new Xbox covers to the Deathloop to anything in the state of play. Just let me know in the comments below of anything you're excited about or anything you didn't like too much or what have you. It has been, yes it has, an honour and a privilege serving for you in this podcast of mine today, and I shall catch you in the next one, folks. Take it easy. Bye.